one of the things that we end up diving into first and foremost when we're approached about supporting a client with due diligence is, okay, I need the PSA. I need at a minimum, I need a summary of the PSA. I need to understand how value is allocated on your side, how defects are structured, what are the thresholds? All those things are super important. And what we find oftentimes is there's opportunities to assert defects, but the PSA was drafted in a way that makes it impossible. And sometimes the reality is that this deal is going to get done. Due diligence just has to be done to check a box, for either from a lending standpoint or whatever. And it's got to be a significant defect to really move the needle. But those are all questions that as a landman, you want to be asking. If you're a project manager on a due diligence team, you need to understand, okay, what got us to here? How is this deal structured? What's the PSA set up like? What are those specific nuanced things that you know of that you may have learned through those negotiations that we need to be on the lookout for? All those things are like big parts of how the kind of the mentality you take going into your due diligence.
You can create a ton of value in a PSA, right? Just the way you describe assets, the way the title defect mechanic works. I mean, we worked with a client who was acquiring minerals from large operators for a long time. And, this was probably back in 2016, 17 era, kind of before the sophistication really came into the minerals market at least what exists today. And, in those PSAs, we're just buying everything, any kind of mineral override, NPRI, anything you own in this county. If we go look at, can we do countywide conveyances? And, you talked to him a couple of years later and he's like, the amount of just Easter eggs we found because of that approach is just amazing. Like, we bought that deal for X and it was quickly a 4X because of all the stuff that they didn't know they owned. And we found out that, we now own.
Yeah. But on the
other side, you want to make sure you're, on the buy side, that's great. On the sell side, you want to make sure that, okay, we're showing you what's listed on the schedule, right? It's not, it's not everything inside the box.
Well, and I think that, this, and it kind of goes into the second little bucket a little bit of, that list that you said, Brent, but the, on these smaller deals where you're carving off a piece of something or it's, trading acreage or something like that. I mean, oftentimes from the sell side, you're looking at making sure that what's excluded is the right stuff. Like, let's make sure that we're not giving them our overrides unless they're listed on this, schedule. Or if a seller or if a buyer takes the approach of like a sale area, like John was saying, where it's everything in this box or this county or whatever, let's make sure that we reserve the overrides and the minerals or the leases or, wellbore interest, et cetera, that we want to make sure that's described somewhere and how the PSA works. And so really just educating them as to how the document is configured and how it works and doing that early enough so that, when you're not on the phone with your client, they already kind of understand the setup and they can be like, you know what, I don't know if this is covered. I need to ask the question to the legal team or to within the land team and say, okay, let's look at this a little bit harder to make sure that we're not doing something we don't intend to.
Yeah. And what is the recommended, like at what point in time do you guys like to be involved? So say, you've got a deals team in-house and they're starting to frame out the discussions with a counterpart to either buy or sell. At what point do you guys recommend getting involved? When should an in-house landman, or that team be reaching out to their counsel to start helping frame out the PSAs and things like that?
I think it needs to be pretty early because, I mean, a lot of the time it comes down to, are we selling the assets or are we selling the entities? Mm-hmm. And, that discussion may be framed by what kind of transfer restrictions that you have in the underlying contracts or in the leases or whatever. Sometimes you can get around those through an equity deal. But then also just, we don't have to be grinding and cranking on documents necessarily, but going through this checklist of questions that we have about midstream, all the things we've been talking about today, structure of the, how are y'all thinking about title? Are you going to be, representing, are you going to ask a buyer to allocate value to the PDP stream and then the balance to undeveloped? Are you going to be limiting it to specific target depths? All of those things, if we can think about those ahead of time, it allows us to, draft an initial document, move quicker, move with a little bit more intention. And that serves everybody well as the process gets going, because we all know what happens is, some number gets thrown out, everybody gets really excited, and it's go, 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 go. And, and that's
you're
part of the deal.
reactive.
It's fun,
Yeah.
but it's also like, part of it allows us to do our job a lot better, and our clients receive a lot better service as a result of that.
Yeah. I always tell my clients on the due diligence front, call me as soon as you have an inkling that you might need to be doing something. It takes time to allocate resources. And frankly, when I know about it, you get free brain time, because I'm just thinking about it. It's there. My mind's working, and I'm not reacting to like, all right, what's in front of me? I got to go tomorrow. So the more proactive, a client can be with reaching out to their support teams, whether it be on the legal side or on the land side, the better. The earlier, the better is our MO. And you get that free brain time. I don't know if attorneys give free brain time.
And I think that's probably the hesitation, right, to reach out. It's like, God, as soon as we reach out, the meteor's just going to kick on. But it's I didn't make this up, right? There's cheap, fast, good. Pick two.
Yeah.
On a deal, right? But when you bring in a team, like a group, an outside counsel to assist you, and it's the last minute, you're probably gonna have to bring in a lot more people to just cover off on everything, and make that fast deadline. Whereas opposed to if you brought in someone earlier, it's a smaller, the right people who can work at a more normal pace. And to Austin's point about those questions, it's like, hey, let's make this game plan and get this doc ready, so that we're not finding out, once we already had served up a doc, that, oh wait, there's this major issue here, we haven't accounted for it, and we're posting this doc to a VDR tomorrow. And just avoiding things like that in the end are going to cost real dollars from the purchase price, as opposed to maybe a couple extra hours, had you picked up the phone, a few weeks earlier.
Well, and I think the other thing on the cost side of that is the credibility that you have with your buyers. If you go in there and it's not coordinated, and it's like, wait a second, this doc doesn't match the way that you guys represented value in the data room. Like, what are you asking us to do? That doesn't sell well. And that's what we try to avoid. We try to be as efficient as possible with our clients. But I mean, when you present a very collected and thoughtful picture that syncs up with what's in that VDR and the way that those conversations with your buyers have been going, the deal flow of that negotiation, it just works a lot better.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I mean, we're very fortunate. We have a lot of clients where we've helped them, buy a majority of the things, the assets that they've purchased, and then we help them on the way out. We know our clients' assets quite well in a lot of cases. And if we know something's going on, even if it's not even hot and heavy, even if it's coming next month or something, things that we're doing for other clients in other works or deals that we see in the market. I mean, that can just sit in the back of your head and be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That might relate to where these guys go. We need to be on the lookout for that.
Yeah. Like I think to Austin's point, so there's been a couple deals recently where we're representing, a seller, and the person they're selling to now has recently bought, and they have a PSA that's public out, and we've pulled it and we've already like dissected it. And it's like, oh, by the way, they gave on this, and this.
Yeah.
In this deal a couple months ago.
Yeah. There's some strategy there as well. So that makes a lot of sense.